Namaste, yogis. Welcome to Bhakti Yoga Conference 2026. Sacred community, walking the path of love together. I'm Happy Jack, the founder of Happy Jack Yoga and our host for today. And this is our second annual gathering, bringing together over 40 monks and scholars and spiritual leaders and musicians, as we have today. And we opened this year's conference last week live at Harvard Divinity School, and we'll conclude our final gathering at the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. Together we're exploring how devotion and spiritual community support us on the path of Bhakti Yoga. We now have over 6,000 participants registered, including Harvard students, practitioners of Bhakti Yoga, yoga teachers, spiritual seekers from around the world. And really this is meant to be a space for spiritual friendship, shared inquiry, heartfelt conversation. And if you'd love, please share in the chat, let us know where you're calling in from today. And really wherever you're calling in from, thank you for being a part of our global Sangha. And now it is our honor to introduce our special guest today. I'll bring him on spotlight while I do a little read of the bio. So Manu was born and raised in the Bhakti community of Radhadesh in Belgium, where the sound of Kirtan and mantra chanting formed the background of his earliest memories. Growing up in this spiritual environment naturally immersed him in the culture of devotion, music, and community that continues to shape his life today. Over the past 15 years, Manu has taken on an active role with the Radhadesh community as one of its administrators, helping to care for and develop this unique spiritual place. Alongside a dedicated team, he helps facilitate the experience of tens of thousands of visitors who come each year to the beautiful Radhadesh grounds, many of them seeking connection, inspiration, or a moment of spiritual reflection. And I'll just add, our community is very likely coming there to Radhadesh this year, so we're in communication, or actually next year we're in communication to make that happen. Beyond his administrative responsibilities, Manu remains deeply connected to the practice of Kirtan itself. A devoted practitioner, a father of 3 young children, and someone balancing many roles within community life, he continues to find nourishment in the simple power of chanting. Since the age of 19, Manu has also been the organizer of Radhadesh Mellows, an annual international Kirtan gathering that celebrates the chanting of the holy names and the Maha Mantra. What began as a small devotional initiative has grown into a global festival, welcoming more than 2,000 participants each year, and many more who join online from around the world. In January 2027, the festival will celebrate its 19th edition. Over the years, the Kirtans emerged from Radhadesh Mellows have reached tens of millions of listeners worldwide, inspiring people across cultures through the shared experience of sacred sound. My friends, if you are ready to welcome Manu to the stage, please throw your arms in the air and loudly chant Haribol! Manu, we're honored to have you here with us today. Welcome to Bhakti Yoga Conference.
My pleasure to be here.
Really appreciate you taking the time. You know, we were connecting for a little bit before we went live. I met your parents, I guess it was a few months ago at the Govardhan Eco Village in India, and we shared so many meals together and just had beautiful conversations, and I got to learn about, all of their children, and you in particular, this beautiful initiative that you've created with the Radhadesh Mellows, and really we're honored to be in conversation with you today. The topic is the Sanga of Kirtan. And so normally, like, the first question that we ask all of our speakers is, what brought you to spiritual life? But we hear in your bio, you were born into a community, right from birth. So, being born in the Radhadesh community where Kirtan was really a part of your everyday atmosphere, can you take us back to your earliest memories of Kirtan? What did it feel like as a kid, growing up? I think about my, Canada, G.I. Joes, Transformers, like very different childhood I think that you had. What was it like as a kid growing up surrounded by sacred sound?
Yeah, so in my case, for me, my brother, my sister, just like other youths that were born here in this community, we had the incredible fortune from a young age to be part of what was, really a temple lifestyle. And so we lived with our parents at home, but on a daily basis, we would make a point to go to the temple, usually for a certain ceremony or a kirtan, and be there from a very young age. And the youngest memories I have is when there was very intense, loud kirtans and all the big adults were jumping up and down and being happy. It was a good time to fall asleep. Somehow it would rock us to sleep. And
Wow.
as even with my own kids, that's what we have witnessed, is that somehow they sleep very well, even when it is an intense kirtan. But with time, I would say the ear, or the ear not just from the physical one, but the ear from the heart, brought a little more attention to what this really was. And yeah, sure enough, the attractive nature of kirtan, which is both, musically very unique as well as spiritually powerful, yeah, got me, as many others, interested and inspired. And so from a young age, we were given the opportunity, some of us, be it by our parents or some teachers here, to learn one, two small little rhythms on the mridanga, the drum that's played often in kirtan. And in this way, from a very young age, I would assist, and quite quite soon, because I knew maybe two or three rhythms, and that was more than most other people, most adults. So often I was asked, even as a young child, to come and play in the kirtans, and I always felt very encouraged, very inspired. And yeah, that's where the early stages of my kirtan journey, I say, happened. And then
Nice.
at a later phase, as a teenager, there I would say I really took it at a much more serious aspect, but to be spoken of a bit after.
That's beautiful. I mean, many of us we find kirtan later in life, and in fact, I mean, there likely are people in our community who have actually never even heard the term kirtan,
Mm,
and so, and
mhm.
maybe we have, and it's described as music or meditation or prayer, this celebratory singing. But from your experience, like, what
Mm.
is kirtan at its deepest level?
So much to say. In in a nutshell, well, I would say there are two aspects to kirtan. One aspect is connecting with the divine, with something very internal, something very powerful, with God, and really going to somewhere that is beyond our material scope, and something that is much more of a spiritual element. That is one aspect that is so key, so essential to kirtan. And the secondary aspect that is unique to kirtan specifically is the fact that it is done within a group. It is always done together with others. And there is such a strength to do things as a team, especially such as a spiritually, powerful activity. And most of us, when we have a great experience in kirtan, is because the group has done a joint effort altogether, which have created a unique space, a spiritual space, a sacred space, and have made it such a palatable and wonderful experience for others. So it's really those two things. It's the group, the dynamic of everyone or whoever may be there being involved together, and of course the connection with the divine, and combining those two. It's the best of both worlds, in at least in my mind.
I love that. And it's so fitting. Our conference theme is sacred community, walking the path of love together.
Mm,
And so, just in that element, in that line of thinking, how does kirtan help create spiritual community? Among people who
mhm.
maybe people who've never met before. Obviously, that's the case. If you have 2,000 people coming into a little area in Belgium and many more online, how does that kirtan help create spiritual community?
So it was one of the reasons I chose the topic, the Sanga of Kirtan, because I mean, I'm not talking here from a proper Sanskrit translation, but from what the word stands for. Sangha often means it can be used as community, and it is creating such a space where anyone and everyone is welcome. So wanting to be understood, especially about kirtan, is that when you look back in its history, at its early phases, at its early times, it is something that was that I mean, in, let's say, from a historical perspective, its prominence grew 500 years ago with the very renowned saint, the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what he did is he broke all those social castes, all those social norms that made that people from different, I say, levels of society couldn't be together to do activities, even spiritual activities. And so he broke this all down, and he made it a point that kirtan is something which is meant for all. It is meant for everyone, no matter what caste system they're from, what gender, what ethnicity, whatever it may be. The only qualification is having desire to be part of it and wanting to be there. And so he started this over 500 years ago, and gradually it's something that has made its way all around the world. We can say now, especially over the last 50 years, it's really grown very seriously, and it is something that really allows each and everyone to be part of it, because what is unique about chanting and connecting through one's voice is the fact that everyone has their own and unique offering they can give, and the only criteria is being there and giving it your best. And when you do that, and especially you do it within the mood of trying to do it together, then it is always such a special experience. And so it creates opportunities or environments where anyone and everyone, no matter what kind of life they're living, what kind of challenges or good fortunes they're going through, they feel they can be in such a space because everyone is in the same, I say, consciousness, at least for the duration of a kirtan.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. You feel that special vibe, for someone new coming into it, and it's nice how you can articulate, put words to it. With the different festivals of Radhadesh Mellows, you've seen, many people come together, chanting together. And what have you observed about the practice that helps dissolve barriers between people? Maybe we have different culture, different language, as you said. There's many different languages spoken. We
Yeah.
live in Radhadesh backgrounds. Like what is it about the kirtan and this experience? And because of course we could extrapolate this and look in the world right now, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
craziness happening. But let's just focus on in our immediate environment. What have you observed?
Well, I think you touched to the point. For instance, the last few years we've been for the particular festival that we do end of January every year. We had we had around 2,000 people from over 50 different countries coming, and including many people who may not speak English as a primary language, even though a lot of the communication is done in English. Now, what is wonderful about Kirtan is that it is a language which feels fully universal, just like music has such a potency, regardless of where we're from. We know that when there's a very nice rhythm that's being played, wherever you may come from, you feel attracted to that, and people have a feeling to dance or to chant along. And this is why Kirtan holds a very unique space, because it allows to bring something within the realm of music, which is already such a universally appreciated, I say, practice, and bring the spiritual within it, and it breaks just all barriers, because there is nothing that says, oh, you can and you cannot. Everyone is welcome, and everyone can participate in that sense. And so we see people that travel from very far that really make such an endeavor, and even if they may not be communicating through a common language, the one way we communicate is by sitting next to each other, usually in a very tight space because there's a lot of people, and chanting together and dancing together. And this allows to create such an incredible experience where everyone feels like they're just one group, all aimed in one direction and connecting in one direction. And another aspect I would like to highlight is that somehow this festival, more than perhaps many others, it's always collected many generations of individuals. So there's a lot of youths that participate, but also a lot of seniors and a lot of middle-aged, I say, persons that come. And why? Because kirtan is not something that's also limited in that sense. It's something that anyone, no matter where they're from, the ages, they can connect and be there. It's very interesting.
I love that. It's right. Like that makes it accessible. I'm newer to the Bhakti path, and sometimes I'll be sitting here in my little puja area and chanting some mantras, and sometimes sitting by yourself in stillness. It can
Hmm.
be beautiful, and sometimes it can be challenging, right? To kind of just
Yes,
sit there with yourself, and this is almost like a way to. Well, this is a way to practice it, chanting the names, being together, very devotional,
hmm,
very much our sadhana, our spiritual practice. But it's kind of like easier to feel welcomed and to participate.
for sure. It's I appreciate you spoke about that because the form of, let's say, japa, which is one of the main ways of chanting those beautiful names, it is something that is usually done individually and can be a lot easier, let's say, to be distracted. And kirtan has this aspect where, because there is such a energy around it, there's so much more in some ways happening. It can be for many more easy to focus, more easy to be involved, and more easy to feel connected. Now, saying that japa is so essential, it is equally important to have for all of us, simply because it is sort of in our connection with the Lord. It is basically our homework. It is really working as ourselves with with him and making this endeavor. Whereas in kirtan, it's the group support. So sometimes you are not in the best consciousness, but because the group is, you're dragged along, and that is fantastic about kirtan. It's really the highway in the direction, and at the same time, japa is something where it really shows our own initiative to really give the time, give the moment to focus and to deepen our understanding of the chanting process of those names and really connect. So these two, they're so essential to be there together if you really want to understand, I would say, either. So I
Yeah.
mean that's always something that's brought up, and it's yeah, it's a beautiful beautiful how you say combination.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna just because we're talking about it, I'm gonna ask the question. I'm probably looking for permission here. I mentioned about sitting and doing japa, and I find
Yeah,
it's I live out in the middle of the wilderness in Canada, and I find it really nice and enjoyable to go for japa walks. So I'll walk into
yeah.
nature and chant my rounds. And truthfully, I don't know if I've ever sat and done 16 rounds seated. I'm just being honest. And I don't know if you're in a position to give me permission, but is that, from your understanding of the tradition, is that okay to do some walking, or should we work towards being able to really sit in stillness for the whole time?
It's not so much about the stillness, but really about where your focus is. So when your consciousness is in the right space, even if you're walking, then it is right. It functions. And one thing I could say about this, I mean, I am no authority to to give permission, but one thing I can say about this is, I mean, to compare with kirtan, one of the reasons kirtan holds a unique, how you say, a unique spot is because it tends to engage all our senses. So it means, because we are perhaps dancing, we're clapping, we're hearing, we're singing, we are with our eyes seeing a feast for the eyes of what's going on. It keeps us a lot more focused and present in the space. Whereas when we're in a meditative space, unless we're a very qualified yogi or with yogi attributes, we tend to get more distracted more easily. Now, in some ways, walking can help with that, because especially when you walk in beautiful nature, and nature is created by the Lord Himself, so there's nothing wrong with that. But it allows us to utilize our body in a way where we're perhaps a bit less focused on this, and then we can just listen to the names within our mind. Obviously try still to enact them so that we can hear them, and it doesn't matter in the end if we are focused on the chanting. The connection is the same, is of the same quality. Now,
Yeah.
I still would add that there is a reason, especially when we think of Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly brought the Maha Mantra over to the West. one of the reasons he wanted or he advised sadhana to be done in group setting is because he knew how fickle our mind is. And so when we do sit with others, so for instance, in my case, as a family man, I'm not so easily able to go daily to the temple, but I make it a point every Saturday morning to try and be there for much of the program that happens here in our community. And one of the reasons is because I want at least once a week where I'm in a space where my mind is slightly less distracted than if I'm at home, and many things can easily come in the way, be it your telephone screen, be it your children, be it whatever may happen. But when you're in the temple and you hear other people that are also chanting their japa, in many ways it brings your mind back. So you basically give yourself less opportunities to be distracted and more opportunities to hear the chanting and be reminded of the chanting. But it is not that that is the only way. It is there as a supportive system for those who have the opportunity or who need it perhaps more than others. And but in the end, japa is your own connection. It's your own connection with the Lord. And there are beautiful stories out there, including some where I mean, I'm not going to go into too many stories, but at least one story where even one personality was chanting in the bathroom, and then he got told off by someone senior because, oh, this is not a bona fide place to chant, to be spiritually connected. And the person that was doing that was perhaps a bit naive in his nature, but he was just trying to chant and be in the right space. And what happened is the person who corrected him eventually got corrected by the Lord himself, saying, well, no, he was singing my names. I was listening. I was enjoying his chanting. And so that is all that matters, is that the Lord hears and where our consciousness is. And so this means that even if you're in the shower and you're singing, that's nothing wrong with that. That is completely fine. And in the end, wherever your consciousness and your heart lies is where the Lord reciprocates and feels attracted to. And this is what is particularly special with chanting, and even if it is on our own.
I love that. Thank you for sharing those perspectives and connecting it to Shastra as well. I sometimes, tell myself there's the shloka, there's no hard and fast rules. So I think, I make
Mm.
that, utilize that. But maybe before we keep going on the practical side of things, which I know we're going to want to spend some time on, let's talk about Radhadesh Mellows, right? So
Yeah,
you started organizing this when you were 19 years old. So that was just,
yeah,
what, a couple of years ago, something like that?
a
19
little
years
bit
ago.
more, a little more, yes. So yeah,
Right. So what
I'm
was it that inspired you to start the gathering initially? And did you ever imagine that it would grow into this big international kirtan
mm,
festival?
not definitely not directly. What happened is actually the year before that, in 2008, summer of 2008, we had a Kuli Mela, which was basically a large festival with a lot of second generation youth that have grown up within the Bhakti movement. And this was our first big gathering here in Europe. And there was about 600 youth of all ages that were present. And a lot of us, we love kirtan. And so part of the festival, the kirtans were very prominent. And it was meant to be just one little tent where there's kirtan going on all day. And then you had the big space where there's big performances and a lot of other things going on. But what happened is the kirtans were just so nice, so wonderful, and so good that majority of the people were there. And it meant that even the performances, no one wanted to start because no one was in the performance tent in the evening. So we had to, as the organizers, I was one of them, we had to try and stop the kirtan, which is very contrary to what our nature feels like, but just to allow the performance to have people come by. But what it did is that it created such a beautiful environment for those few days that summer that the leaders at that time that were here, they were so amazed to see all these youth that had grown up, be it in this community or in other communities, so inspired. And they felt, wow, we need to really give more opportunity to kirtan to be out there. So they reached out to one of the senior second generation, Madhava Prabhu. He's quite a renowned
Yeah.
kirtan leader that travels around the world still today to do beautiful and very meditative kirtans. And they asked, what do you advise us to do? And he suggested, well, it'd be good you do a 24-hour kirtan, or perhaps a weekend where there's 2 times 12 hours. And so that January 2009 was the first edition. Now, I need to clarify one thing. I was not there. I was for 6 months in Vrindavan on my own spiritual path, connecting to Kirtan. And I got to know whilst there that there was a Kirtan festival that was going to happen for the first time in Radhadesh. So I got quite frustrated as the Kirtan, as one of the eager Kirtan youth of the community, that something like this was happening. And so when I came back the next April, then I said I reached out to the how you say, the temple president, the ones in charge, and I kept asking them and bugging them every week. When is the next festival? When is it happening again? How could you do this when I wasn't there? And it kept going like this. And then after a few months, the leader then he said, you had a bit of experience organizing the youth event. Why don't you organize this Kirtan festival? And I was a bit surprised by the invitation. I said, well, I've never organized on my own something like this. He's like, it's not complicated. You just, you get a few Kirtan devotees to come who love chanting, and, you chant together, and that's it. So it sounded very easy. And the first year that was the second edition, but the first year I was involved, I gave it the name as it is now, which came through inspiration of Vrindavan Mellows and what Ayner Prabhu, a wonderful saint in the holy town of Vrindavan, labeled his recordings, which were very special to many of us youth. So we labeled it, and then I tried to get a few senior Kirtan leaders to come, but a lot of them were unable to or had bad health. And so I went back to the managers, and they said, well, you have many friends who love Kirtan, just invite your friends. And I was like, really? I can do that? And they said yes. And they gave me a small budget, and I invited my friends. And my friends, to my good fortune, were like Nadia Mani, Janavi, Harrison, Varun, many people who nowadays are quite renowned in the Kirtan world. But this was our little group that started this festival in January 2010. And that program was so nice, so inspiring, that the next year I made it a point, okay, now I'll take over the whole organization. I'll organize not just the kirtans, but hosting people, prasadam, or the sacred meals that are offered to everyone, and getting more people invited, etc. And so we went from 150 present the first year to 300 the next year, then 500, then 7, 8, 900, 1,000, and up till today where we're 2,000 people. And it's grown into something quite known, at least within the kirtan scene.
That's amazing. And so, for many of us who haven't been to Radhadesh or Radhadesh Mellows yet, how would you describe the atmosphere? So, we got a sense of what kirtan is. There's all these people coming together, someone leading. What do we feel? Continuous kirtan for 12 hours to a couple of days. What's the atmosphere?
Usually the first word that comes to my mind is intense. and why? Because as you mentioned just now, there's the aspect we're doing a minimum of 12 hours. Usually, because we can't stop, we tend to go about 15 hours, 16 hours up to midnight, something like this each day, and then start again the next morning at 10. We do 3 days now during the festival.
Wow.
And what it is, though, is that this festival has grown with a group a big group of friends and people who genuinely really love chanting and chanting together. And so what it is that, compared to many events where people come and they come for perhaps a specific person to listen to, and that's it, and then they go, or maybe one or two others, this event, for instance, we never publicize who is coming. People don't know in advance who is coming. They just know there's going to be kirtan. And there's the faith that if you come, there's going to be a first-class group of people who are so good at leading kirtans and who love chanting and who will guide the kirtans and make it a special experience. And so we don't, for instance, publicize the names until the morning itself when it starts. Wow. Then we put out the list. And it means that whoever has faith in the chanting will have made their plans to be there. And if you see a list, it tends to be too late to fly over, find a hotel, find something to make it over. But one of the reasons we do that is because we really want people to come for the holy names for kirtan, and not just because there's a big shot or a famous person that is there present. And it's combining this reality of having the most eager chanters being in one location, and that includes from the whole technical team to the whole crew that serves the festival to those who lead the kirtans to the many that attend. Everyone is on board on the same with the same mindset. And so it means when you love chanting or you really are attracted to kirtan and you come to an event like this, it will be something very special and something different to probably any other program you may have experienced, because it is rare to have such a high amount of people who are so serious about kirtan in one space. Many events, when we travel or we go to other programs, I mean, like myself, it always feels okay. We are a crew of 20, 30 that practice and live and breathe kirtan. And then you have hundreds or thousands of people who are there who like it, but come just to hear about it. Whereas here in Radhadesh, it feels that we're several hundreds of people and more that live and breathe kirtan. So it creates something very powerful. And usually all those that are present on site, that's what they share. They say there's nothing comparable to this, at least in such a mood, such an intensity, but such a beautiful intensity, and the ability to practice like this all together. And what I wanted to say as well is every year, because we're all growing, many of us, we were very young when we started. Now we're all getting older. There's also younger ones we involve every year. But it also means we are still very much on our own spiritual path and trying to understand our relation with Krishna, with the divine. And it means every year the experience is a bit sweeter. It is a bit more profound. It is a bit deeper. And that's why I would say majority of people that come, they come every year because they feel, okay, this is the next chapter in the journey, and we don't want to miss out on this. So it's nice. It feels like a big family of thousands, but a big family because we see only familiar faces every year. And most of the time, people come back and they say, okay, I'm bringing one extra friend who we know they will like this. And that's how the festival has gradually been growing. We've never done any publicity. We've never done any endeavors in terms of marketing. I think you may have noticed our social media is very basic. It's mostly for practical announcements, but partially the reason is because we don't want this to grow out of proportion and perhaps lose its core strength. And the core strength is all those people that come who really live and breathe kirtan and who are attracted to this.
Wow, it's so inspiring. For each of us as we think just the principles of what you've created this experience based on. It's inspiring for all of us to think about what can we do in our communities. But I want to shift because, as you've mentioned, we're all growing older. You're not only a kirtan practitioner, but you're a father of three. And so, how does kirtan look in your life, like in your day-to-day life? You mentioned Saturdays. You'll go to the temple and to plug back in.
Yeah.
In a day-to-day, is kirtan a part of your life with your family?
So one thing that's been synonymous with, at least in my case, with my life and what we do here, is that actually for as long as the festival has been existing, we have also been doing every single day here in the temple in Radhadesh, every evening from 8:15 to 9:15, there is kirtan that goes on. And it started with a group of us friends. I was one of those that were present. We were a group of 4 or 5. And we didn't know that we were going to be doing this every evening. We just started and we so much enjoyed chanting and singing together that at some point after a few months in, we're like, oh, wow, this has become a day-to-day routine. And for I would say for nearly 12 years, I didn't miss an evening unless I was genuinely sick or I was absent somewhere on travel. And that's for myself and a few others that were also very, very dedicated. And over those years, also different people came through the community, and for a certain amount of months or years, they served every evening in the kirtans. And the reason why I say this is because this very small gathering, because in some ways, some evenings you're just three, four of you. Other evenings when there's yoga groups or different people that come through, there can be 30, 40, 50, or 100 people that will be there. But it is a sadhana. It is a practice that we do. And Satchidanand Swami, who is, I believe he's one of your guests at a later phase, I mean, in some weeks,
Yeah.
he mentioned once to me personally, he said, you know, a lot of the Shakti or the good fortune that comes to you or to the community here in terms of kirtan, in terms of this festival you do, is because every day some of you are there every evening, and for the pleasure of the Lord, you chant together. And because you do this in such a fixed way, it brings pleasure to the Lord, and the Lord then he just assists and he allows so many beautiful things to come in place. And the reason I say this is because a big festival as Radhadesh Mellows has come through in the end a form of sadhana, a form of daily practice or regular practice, and that needs to be maintained as much as is possible to to really understand our own relationship with the Lord. Now, since I've had, I say, when I had my first kid, I was still able to go every evening. My wife was very kindly most of the time looking after our first son and staying back, or sometimes bringing him along. And by the second kid, then it became a bit more complicated to be there on a daily basis because they had different sleeping times, and one had to help with one and the other. And by the third one, it became a lot more complicated. But the story is very simple. Every day, my meditation for me is very simple. Is I try to get at least one child to be in bed before 8:15 in the evening, because then I know my wife can kindly handle the other two, and then I can go to kirtan. And I don't make it as regularly as before. So there are some weeks I make it only one time, or sometimes not even during the week. And other weeks I'm able to go 5 or 6 times. But every time I go, it is such a pleasure to be sitting in a sacred space with a few other youth and people who really cherish chanting and are there every day to chant together. And it's a ever evolving experience because there may be some nights where, for different reasons, some of the others are unable to come. Like there was a night in, or 2 nights in December that I was alone, and there was like 15, 20 guests, and I was alone, and there was no one to assist for mridanga, for kartos. But I felt very blissful to be able to be there in the temple and then to engage all those that were there to chant. And this has been going on for 16, 17 years here in Radhadesh. And it is something that I always advise to anyone, wherever they may be. If there's someone that is in the same mindset as you or who really also is attracted to chanting, please try on a regular basis to chant together. It may be once a month, maybe once a week, or it may be more regular, but try to do this in a regular way because it creates this Sangha, it creates this community, and there is just nothing better. That's at least my opinion.
I love that. It's so beautiful. And I mean, I really like this idea of how the Shakti that's created because of the small group of you who are consistently showing up, and that's what's really propagated and brought the, helped the festival to grow. It's like
Mm.
divine marketing, right? Instead of like paying for a bunch of Facebook ads, but it's like really doing it from the right mood,
It's
the right heart
it's
space.
it's really like you say. It is basically the most ideal. I say word to mouth, or I know in French you say from ear to mouth, but in other words, it goes the natural process, and when it goes that way, it is so much more effective. Because when a friend tells you about something they are convinced about, you definitely listen to them, and it is a lot different than just seeing an ad or seeing something on social media. And it is what creates the strength because it means most of the people that come to this program, they're people that know about chanting, that appreciate chanting, and that have been told by someone else that knows about it and that understand what's going on that you will like this. You need to come and you will see what I'm talking about. And so it really feels there's such a strength, such an incredible, communion between all those who are present every year for this program.
Amazing. Well, one thing you talked about as well was sadhana or spiritual
Mhm.
practice, and it'd be really helpful to hear from you because, as you said, you get a full responsibilities with the children and with life and different admin roles. what role can chanting mantra, can kirtan play in some of our lives? Like if we're busy with work and family and other responsibilities, sometimes people feel they don't have time for spirit. We've heard that before from students. And
Yeah.
I
I
guess first, how do you navigate that? And two, if you actually make some time for the sadhana, what is the benefit? How does that help you navigate the responsibilities?
mm, it's there are two ways for me to respond to that. One, perhaps a bit more cheeky way to respond is it's really just a question of priority.
Yeah.
When something is a priority to you, you will find time. It is just the way it functions. And I've had discussions with friends who tell me, you're so lucky, you get to go every day to Kirtan or you do these programs and so on. And I agree with them. They're right, but it is my priority. And those same friends, they say, oh, I don't get the opportunity to do this. And then I tease them back and I say, well, you don't get the opportunity to do this, but I know you're going for 3 weeks to Greece on holiday, then you go 2 weeks there on another holiday, and that is your priority. And in my case, that's not my priority. My few days off or the times I travel is usually to go to another kirtan event or program or initiative because that is what enliven me. That's what gives me so much energy in my day-to-day basis. So it's really a question of priority. That is one. Now, to
And
be
could I
clear,
just say you
yeah,
were just in Sarajevo, Bosnia, like
yes.
last weekend or something like that on a
Just
program.
yeah, 4 days ago,
Okay.
we were there with a friend. We went to serve, and it's a unique space. It's a space that's gone through war that still feels like war is not that far off. People have been a lot of challenge there, but there's a little community of individuals who love kirtan and who share kirtan, and we went to support there because not many people go there for that purpose. And yeah, we did one home event with 25 people, which was so nice. They felt very inspired. And the next day, a public event with probably around 50 people. It was small, but those who were there really appreciated it. And why do we do this? Because we see, there are people who are as eager, who prioritize kirtan as much as us. They're just perhaps in a different setting, which doesn't allow them to travel as easily, or to manage their time as easily. But because they do it, I mean, myself at least, I feel so appreciative, and I want to support that. Now, one thing I wanted to say is, especially as I'm a father of three now, I've also had to go through the process of understanding uh, the differences between priority and duty. And so recently, I've had to explain to some people who were asking me about it, and I said, our family, our children, and I guess our work or our service, that's our duty. And that's something we need to do no matter what. And our priority is kirtan. So in my life, kirtan remains my number one priority, but I do not sacrifice my family life or my duty there, for the sake of kirtan. It's something that is always done together in communion with my wife. Like if there's an agreement, I go travel. I try to make sure that she has the support or whatever is necessary to help with the children, so that they don't feel, like, oh, well, he's just going out and having a great time, and then we're home, having to deal with the day to day life. So we need to find the right balance. But this is how, you make something a priority. You see also what are your duties, and then after you see what your schedule is. And the reality is that most of us, if you really look at that, there are definitely things that we cut out. I mean, one of the questions you asked me before we joined the call, and you're asking about social media, and I explained one of the reasons I'm not directly, at least on social media, is exactly for this purpose, is because I know that I would not be able to have that communicate and relate with everyone else as most people do, and spend hours a day dealing with that aspect, and then do everything else that is on my daily routine. So I kicked that out, and I feel very grateful to the younger person in me back then that took that decision not to how you say spend time on this, so that I have enough time for kirtan, so that those things that are important to me, that are my priorities, I'm able to give the time, even if it is just 1 hour a day, even sometimes when it is just half an hour a day, then I'm able to do that. So this is, yeah, it's very key. It's not easy, but when our desire and our sincerity is strong, I'm convinced it is achievable. And the other component we may sometimes forget is that this is not a decision that's just our own. This is a decision that is directly connected to Krishna, to the divine. And so when we really sincerely want to serve him, want to be connected with him, he facilitates that as well. And so then you see certain things that you may have perceived as obstacles that suddenly they disappear or they dissipate and they are not anymore present. And it's like, oh, things have become easier. And this is also on the step we take forward. There's this beautiful saying that always says, we take one step forward to Krishna and he takes 10 steps forward to us. And I feel I've gone through enough experiences in my life where I've really experienced that, where I've done a step, which for me, perhaps that one step was a big thing, but then so much came back towards me and has allowed me to continue living a life that there's a lot of beauty, at least when it comes to kirtan, in it.
That's beautiful. It's so true. Priorities, and you said it's not simple, but worth it. We can feel the essence, the way the conviction that you have, the passion that you have. It's definitely worth it. And so as we know, there's like millions of people who are discovering kirtan around the world these days. Why do you think the chanting of Maha Mantra resonates so deeply? What is it about this mantra?
Mm. It's a very good question. From a personal perspective, I've been directly chanting the Maha Mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra for 35 years. Let's say 33, whenever the age was where I could chant it. And I do not remember, at least personally, a time where I was bored of it. And it is very unique because to repeat something on a daily basis, what to speak for hours every day and not be bored of it is something very unique. And what is interesting is that we can relate it. When you talk about the personal aspect, if my wife says my name, says Manu, she's probably said it many times in many different tones, in many different ways, but it's never been a part of her that it's like, oh, I'm fed up of saying his name. It's something that you're fine with saying. Why? Because the affection is there. It is an individual, it represents something. And that's the potency of the name. So we have this as individuals between each other. When we have a person that's such a dear friend to us, when we hear their name, we're so happy. We're like, what? Oh, this person? Oh, yes, yes. And so with the Lord, there's the same aspect. These names is directly and non-different from him. And even though that may not be always the simplest thing to understand, it is still relatable on the level that when someone says, someone that I know says Manu, I know they're talking about me. I know it is me that they're addressing. And so you have the same experience with Krishna. When you address him, he knows it's him that's being contacted. He knows it's him that's being spoken of, or it's him that's being sung to. And that's being told, hey, I want to connect with you. And so there's this interaction that comes, which may not always be perceivable, but that is genuinely there. And so this connection with the holy name is very strong. Now, this is perhaps on a relational aspect. I can explain that, and I'm sure this has been approached in different talks here. From a level of Shastra or from the sacred scriptures, it is told this series of names, these 3 names that are being put in a total of 16 names together, this mantra is told to be extra special, just something more than every other mantra there. And it is put there in different Shastras and Vedic scriptures that are there for thousands and thousands of years. And it is told that in this age in which we are, it is the easiest mantra to connect directly with the Lord, to connect directly with Krishna. Not just that, it is non-different from him. And so we have this unique opportunity in the age we live in to connect so easily to him. And if we just come with a little bit of faith, then we somehow get to understand it, or we experience things that make it extra unique, extra special. And what I can share from my aspect, and I think referring also to the previous question, your days can be long, your days can be intense, but somehow, at least for me in my case, when I sit down and I get into kirtan, everything else that's going in my mind may be from a managerial, a service, a family perspective. It just goes out, and I'm just there in peace and chanting, inspired. I feel happy, and usually by the end, my only complaint is it was too short, and that's the way at least it goes for me. And it is just incredible to be able to experience some level of taste, and it is something that is continuously evolving. And why is it evolving? Because a relationship never stays stagnant. It's something that's always moving. And if we endeavor towards or within a relationship, there's an equal or a simultaneous endeavor that's been done from the other end. And in this way, with the Maha Mantra, there's such there's such a relationship that is established and that can really get somewhere special.
I love it. Thank you for sharing your personal experience, as well as grounding it into Shastra. It's very helpful to hear the personal as well. And so we're going to open it up for Q&A. So for those who
Yeah.
have questions, please raise your virtual hand, share a question in the chat. Maybe I'm just going to squeeze one more in while we wait for some hands to come up. So for someone who's new to Kirtan, the majority of our audience is, from the yoga community, yoga teachers, practitioners, spiritual seekers, but maybe haven't experienced Kirtan yet. And what would you say to encourage them? What's the first step? Because maybe we're not ready to book a flight to Radhadesh Mellows. Maybe that's not the first step. What is the first step?
Well, I mean, on jokes aside, Kirtan, it is so special that even an environment like Radhadesh Mellows, which may be very intense, anyone is welcome and is invited. But indeed, it may be a lot to take in. A first step is just find a sangha, a nearby sangha where there is kirtan or there's a little chanting going on, and just sit down, listen to the names, and try to utter them with your own voice, with your own heart. And when you do that, and you really try to do it within a space where you just try to be, like, let me leave everything else out, you will start connecting, and you will see there is something that is very unique to chanting that somehow gives us peace, gives us warmth, and gives us, in my case, what I feel, it gives me a lot of stability and confidence in the way to move forward. And so many of these programs we do, especially for newcomers or beginners within Kirtan, we always say, just be there, be present. Everyone has their voice. Everyone has their uniqueness they can offer in this environment. It is not something you need to be an expert musician for. Not at all. It is something you just have to come with your heart, with an open heart, and just chant and let the experience come true.
I love it. Beautiful. You speak, there's just such a depth and just like an inner knowing. This is not just something you read in a book, clearly something that you've lived. Beautiful. Well, we've got hands up. We've got questions in the chat. We won't get to them all. But first, Raghava Kripa, Prabhu, our dear friend from Boston. Let's see if we can get Raghava Kripa on the line. Oh, so beautiful to see you, Prabhu.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you so much, Appijakku, for making such wonderful conversations, and beautiful to hear from Manu Prabhu. Prabhu, I mean, this is something which I think you're the right person I should ask, because I was really impressed by your wonderful explanation of how the holy name can have such potency. And so you just not do kirtan, but you actually are connecting to the holy name at deeper level. So I really appreciate it. Prabhu, I mean, bit personal question, like we have been, I've been more inclined for like a philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and I've been like having many great teachers whom I'm taking, lessons. So I have a asking question? It's in between some conversation. Oh, I'm sorry for the response. Oh, is this just can you talk? Sorry.
No problem.
No problem.
Now, I did not want to be distracted because I wanted to ask a very important question which I wanted to ask. So I wanted to ask you, Prabhu, that see what happens is, like in my like if I have some extra time, usually I tend to turn on Prabhupada's tape and hear Prabhupada's lectures or my spiritual master lectures, which nourishes me, and that helps me a lot. And so like Bhagavatam classes and studies, that really appeals to me a lot. But I sincerely feel somewhere and I need to develop more taste for Kirtan, especially. I tend to chant more rounds on Ekadashi days, and and in general, also some extra rounds I may chant, personal japa. But I can frankly admit to you that I think somewhere I have to really work on, spending time just singing the holy name, like out of the official hours of my morning program, which which I try to be there always. I try to be there. So I want to ask you that. Can you tell me, suggest me some practical tips? How could I do that? Because for me, how can I develop that kind of enthusiasm that would let me prioritize the time for kirtan, as you said, prioritize. So I prioritize my reading, I prioritize my hearing, my morning program, but especially like kirtan, because I have a lot of responsibilities, I have a lot of services, for preaching and many services. So if I have time, then I feel I connect with philosophy and lectures and reading Prabhupada books. But this, spending time with Kirtan and relishing, I wish to, but I have done sometimes when I got some Maharajas in Pune and we just had Kirtan. So because this Maharaj, great respect, so I sat there, and I relished it. But I want to have, like, as you said, priority, So how can I begin, Prabhu? I don't know whether you are able to understand my situation.
It's a great question. Great question. Yeah.
I understand, and I know the feeling, what it is to be a temple devotee, and the overwhelming reality it can be sometimes. But it's what I would suggest is, first of all, Sangha is so important, and by Sangha I mean to find those who have at least equal taste in chanting, or ideally more taste in chanting than us. And when you're around such souls, it really helps improve our own experience, improve our own chanting. This is the way I've learned, and I have grown in my own path within Kirtan. I had the good fortune to be in the association or under the kind direction of such serious devotees, such serious chanters who were very connected with the holy names, to the point that sometimes I was like, this is too much. This is too much. I don't understand. This is way beyond my scope of capacity to understand. But I still appreciated their sangha, their association. And by being with them, I am convinced that is what helped me develop taste as well as conviction and faith in the chanting. So Sangha is very essential. And within your environment, one way of Sangha, and we're very fortunate, we live in an age where a lot of things, as you mentioned yourself, be it lectures, be it content, be it kirtans even, is accessible from anywhere you may be. And a lot of that carries incredible potency, especially when you talk of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's lectures, as well as his kirtans, they are still the best. There's nothing in terms of potency that can come as close as what he has to offer. And this is still something that can inspire us. But we also need the practical approach with others, people that we are in person to chant together and who have really a bit more taste in the chanting. So that needs to be there. And then also on an individual side for you, and it's something I do myself every time, you really try to bring the intention in the right place. Because you can be with the right association, but if your intention is not in the right space, you will not take advantage of that association. So, in other words, we may read all the books, all the rules, all the things, all the guidelines we need to follow, and we may apply this. But if we don't apply the right consciousness within this, then we don't reap the benefits. That's the reason why Srila Prabhupada mentioned again and again, the intention, the way we try to connect with Krishna is what brings us forward. I mean, we talk about sometimes the 10 offenses to avoid to the holy names, and we know that the extra and most important offense to avoid is inattentiveness. What's the reason behind this? Is because if I'm calling your name and I'm doing something else at the same time, you will not feel there's really a relation there. You feel like, well, this person is ignoring me. He's calling me out, but he's ignoring me. And so the intention is so important that if we are doing it, if we are even for 1 minute in a space where we try to chant, if we bring our consciousness in the right space and just try to do it in that regards, Krishna reciprocates. And It does not mean it is easy. Along the path of kirtan, there is purification. When we chant, we also get purification. And purification is not always an easy process. It means we're getting rid of karma, we're getting rid of things that need to go out. So sometimes it will be challenging. But if we still try to surrender and give our faith there, at least from my experience, that's all I can share. I'm not a shastrically very expert, but at least from an experiential level, I can say that if you just surrender a bit to the process, you'll see Krishna. He reciprocates, and he will reciprocate by the way you experience it, but also by sending people that will really uplift you, and that is what is wonderful.
I love that, and I just want to say, Raghava Kripa Prabhu, you have everything else dialed in. I lived with in the Boston temple with Raghava Kripa Prabhu for some time, some years, and everything else you've got dialed in. You're there every day, consistency, doing your practices. But I really appreciate your honesty and vulnerability, and having this yearning for the taste for kirtan as well. And there's no doubt once that connection, once that kind of you flip over the tipping point, like look out Boston, look out Pune, wherever you end up being. But really appreciate, very helpful question. I want to be
100%.
respectful of our time, but let's send our gratitude, our Hari Bols, our pranams to Boston, Raghava Kripa Prabhu. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Come back off mute. Just hit the unmute again. You got it.
Now, just a quick reflection. What Prabhu said, I really appreciate, Prabhu, that intention part you shared with me, surrendering to the process. I think that is what I'm taking with me, surrendering to the process. So I get that opportunity in terms of like having a Sanga of the devotees and doing kirtan. But I really felt that sometimes the way we surrender, I tend to surrender to the process of japa and maybe reading scriptures, many other aspects of Krishna consciousness. Maybe I lack in the kirtan. So sometimes, yes, I may be able to do it because of the powerful Sangha and all that. But in general, what happens, kirtan is going on, then there is a tendency to okay, there's kirtan going on. We may do other things.
Seek for those who have taste. Seek for those who have taste. This will help greatly on the way in kirtan. That's what I can say.
Thank you so much, Phil.
So good. Amazing. Well, all our love, blessings, pranams to Boston. Raghava Kripa, all our brothers and sisters there. And Manu Prabhu, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Like, so
my pleasure.
Such a
thank you for having me.
Of course. I mean, it's you're like 10 years or more younger than me. I'm learning, doing the math here, and but you've been living it 35 years, and it's so refreshing. And we just feel this is not book knowledge. This is like something you've lived and experienced, and now, generously sharing. Just in a few seconds, final moment here. What would you leave us with? We've got this community of sincere seekers, somehow have come to bhakti, seeking for something more. What would you leave us with as we continue the journey?
Sharanagati, or surrender. Mm-hmm. And the reason that comes to mind, obviously, the question here from our devotee from Boston, it reminds me that every year, almost without fail, before the festival that I organize, Sachinanand Swami, he calls me to check in on me and see how things are going. And at the end of the call, he always says the same thing. He says, Manu, please remember, you are not the controller. You are not in charge. Krishna is the controller. And the reason he says that is because when you are in roles of responsibilities, which we all have in a way or another in our life, we tend to forget the fact that Krishna is there. He's there within our heart. He's there at all moments. And we are trying on a daily basis to remember that he is there by chanting. And when we make the conscious endeavor to surrender, to still do our best in our duties, in our responsibilities, and in our priorities, then somehow the mercy flows so much easierly. And I've had over the years, the 17, 18 years doing this festival, I've had to go through the hard experiences to remember that, where I was like, yes, Marge, yes, I know, you're right. And the next day, completely forget about this, get caught up in managerial thoughts, and get perhaps frustrated with certain aspects of how things are going, and come down to the point where I had to remember, I'm not in charge. I'm not the controller. I'm just here to serve. And when that shift, that paradigmic shift would take place, suddenly all these problems gone and everything would flow very easily. And in Kirtan, it's the same process. If we think we are the one doing it, then we're not grasping the full picture. We're one part of the relationship, but this relationship at its core is Krishna. And it's something between us and Krishna. It is something between the whole Sangha of devotees or souls that have come to chant together and Krishna. And when we understand that, then means we also respect, appreciate, and encourage everyone that may be there, whether they're here as a beginner, whether they're here as an experienced chanter. We get everyone involved in a beautiful way and appreciate. And this creates the power of Kirtan. This creates the Sangha of Kirtan. Because when everyone is tuned in on the same page and feels, we're brothers and sisters in arms trying to serve, then it just works. And that like you said, from an experiential level, I've gone through so much that I really feel I can say this.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Manu, for sharing your wisdom, your heart with us. Really felt that today. And it just reminds us that Bhakti, it's not meant to be practiced alone. We're walking this path of love together. And to everyone who joined us from around the world, thank you for being here, a part of this growing Sangha. If you'd like to explore the other sessions, we've got the full schedule, all the replays. Manu's replay will be up by the end of the day, and join us. We got 2 more amazing sessions tomorrow. But until then, thank you again, Manu. Thank you everyone for being here, and wishing you all an amazing rest of the day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.